Welcome to Smokey Uncuffed. I'm Brian, and on this channel we'll be covering law enforcement from the side of a retired state trooper, which obviously is me. We'll also be covering some social media stuff, the platforms I use often, and why you should be doing it too. And other than that, we'll just talk about life, just stuff that I like to talk about, things I want to cover. So right off the bat, how many people here get out on an interstate system or a large highway? You're doing the speed limit, close thereof, and people are just blowing your doors off. And you just can't figure out why you're passing law enforcement and nobody's getting stopped. Well, the easiest way I can describe that or explain that is it's a lot like fishing. You know, when I ride sit out on the interstate system, I work I-35 that goes straight through the middle of Oklahoma. And yeah, we see people going by you at 80 miles an hour. But I know that if I sit out there for, an extra minute, maybe 5 minutes, I'm going to get one doing 85, 90, 95. The fastest one I've ever seen just flying down the road, I believe he was at 121 miles an hour. So, we're just humans too. We're just like everybody else. We want to wait and get that best one and really doctor those, because they're going to be the ones that are, at 120 miles an hour, you're easily considered reckless driving. There is no way you're going to be able to control that vehicle in traffic like that. And people will claim they can, but you can't always account for the unexplained, the unpredictable. Somebody in front of you has a blowout. Well, you're not going to be ready for that. Somebody in front of you suddenly changes lanes. Well, there's no way at 120 miles an hour you're going to respond to that correctly and dodge through all the traffic. So, that's one of the largest reasons. On an interstate system, there is so much traffic, and you just can't catch them all. And so you just get what you can. Like I say, it's like fishing. You throw that hook in the water, you're not expecting to pull in 2 or 3 at a time. You're just expecting to drag one back, and hopefully it's a good one. Now then, with that being said, did I ever just stop them at 80 or right around there? Sure. There are days where the traffic is all just running slower. So, that's when you get the opportunity to go out there and hit the ones that are running lighter, not running as high speed. And sometimes you'll doctor them up too, but and what I mean by doctoring, you might write them a ticket, or you may just write them a warning, say, you need to slow her down just a little bit. And those are the days that are really great and probably make the biggest impact. But as busy as our interstate systems are getting through here, Interstate 35 is just a divided 4-lane highway. It easily needs to be a 6-lane or even 8-lane, just so you can have enough room to move on that interstate. Now you can, on any given weekend, and heaven forbid, Oklahoma Sooners or the Oklahoma State Cowboys are playing, or even Texas University, and traffic is bumper to bumper. It's a nightmare working it when it's like that, but that's what you get paid for when you're out there. Now that on a 2-lane highway, are the tolerances different? You bet. Simply because you were just a yellow line or a yellow dash away from being in an accident. So yeah, the tolerance really drops when we get out on those kind of roads. So odds are if somebody's blowing people's doors off out there and there is a law enforcement around, yeah, they're going to get nailed. There's not a wait around and see if somebody else is doing 12, 15 over. We're going to get that one. And it's all, what people really don't see, it all comes back to safety. And it's just speed. Speed kills, man. It's not just a funny quote. It really is the end-all and be-all of a lot of situations. Just slow down. That's what we always tried to preach. And, I truly believe this. Prior to being a trooper, I was a medic for 6 years, all through college. So you see what speed does firsthand when you're trying to treat people who've been in a traumatic accident. There is no situation where I think you should be doing over 100 miles an hour. And now, have I done it? Sure. But my job required it sometimes, because if you're chasing somebody doing 110, guess how fast I got to go to catch you from behind? Over 110. So Did I enjoy it? Not really. I mean, that part of it, you think it's cool, but the driving fast, I mean, we all understand how dangerous it is, and we're not in any big hurry to get in an accident either. Now then, I mean, just be rest assured that when your doors are getting blown off, they're looking. I mean, there's officers out there looking, trying to stop that stuff. Just not always possible. I mean, the other side of it, you'll think, well, a deputy could get them. Well, a deputy could get them. It's not a job I've ever done was being a deputy, and I wouldn't want it. Or a police officer for that matter. Simply because on top of working traffic, on top of it, they have to do theft reports, break-ins, murders, assaults. I mean, domestic stuff. Oh, talk about make your blood boil. People are just out of hand when it's a domestic situation, and oh my gosh, I couldn't do it day to day. That's why I was a trooper. Yeah, occasionally I had to deal with it. I mean, you'd get a fight or a dispute going down the road, and wife and husband are arguing and griping while they're driving, but few and far between. It's rare to get that, but I've assisted deputies and PDs doing that stuff. Nah, it's not my love, is doing domestic stuff. And that's really for another podcast. I'll cover that stuff some other time. But just my point being, if you're not seeing anybody out there stopping all these cars that are blowing your doors off, you know, even as a trooper, sometimes you were helping a broke down motorist, working a wreck, backing up other officers on other things. I mean, PDs, sheriff's offices, other troopers. And the whole thing of it is, if I'd been out there and I stopped one 10 minutes before you got there, and it was doing 110 miles an hour, but the only problem is they had some cocaine in the car, or they were drinking. Well, there you go. The reason I'm not out there stopping cars is because I'm hauling somebody to jail, and that's probably going to be a 2 or 3 hour process. And we only worked 8 or 10 hour shifts, given from time to time. I mean, our shifts did change occasionally, and we'd work 4 10-hour shifts or 5 8-hour shifts, and which the shift work thing is one thing I do not miss. You cannot imagine anything worse for sleep than shift work. It's horrible on you. My sleep's still not good. I sleep about 5 hours, and I thought by now I would break it. I've been retired now, officially retired now for 10 months. Have not been doing the job for 13 months because I took all my vacation right up to retirement. And I would have thought by now it just totally retroed back to where I was sleeping normal. It is not. Oh, man, awful. The other crazy thing about it is that nobody really realizes, at least with Oklahoma Highway Patrol, there are many times that I was working and I was covering a whole county by myself. There were other times I was covering 2 counties by myself. The one county, the smaller county that I was in, that I was stationed in, it only had, it had 20 miles of interstate in it. But the county that was north of me had over 30 miles, or right at 30 miles of interstate in it. So that one, covering all that road, it's just not possible with one person. And even when it wasn't just me, most of the time there were only 2 of us. So when we do get to pull one over, well, everybody can fly by because there is nobody else waiting to get you. And even when we do like a special emphasis, whenever I say we do aircraft on the interstate, and I'll explain that in a second. When we get out there and stop to use an airplane, the airplane can pick you up, call you out, and we'd have 5 or 6 of us there. But we'd only do that for an hour. The plane can only stay up so long. Other calls come in. And that's just the tough of it. And when I said I explained the airplane, people wonder how working traffic with an airplane works. So the way it happens, an airplane flies along, and if you'll ever pay attention whenever you're driving down, at least I-35 is this way, you'll see large white blocks, big squares painted on the shoulders. Those are timing blocks. And when your car gets right beside it, you click a stopwatch, And when it gets to the next one, which is usually half a mile away, you click the stopwatch again, and it do time and distance. The little stopwatch will, it'll figure it up and tell you exactly what speed you're doing. Now, people always argue that there's no way that's accurate, and it does depend on timing. However, I see both sides here because I'm also a pilot. I also flew for the Highway Patrol for 2 years and did the traffic from the air. And I'm here to tell you, I would test it against the radar. I'd get the guys down on the ground to say, hey, shoot this one. I'm going to run it and see where I'm at. See if the blocks are set up right. And the other way we'd do it, I'd get the trooper to go down the road and I would clock him. I'd have him set his cruise control and hit him with a stopwatch and then hit him again at a half mile. It's at least as accurate as radar. There are times I question whether it's not more accurate because you don't have to worry about angles and interference. It's just based on you clicking a button and twice. I mean, it's not hard at all. And the other easy way of it, whenever you're up there at 2,500 feet, 3,000 feet, you can look down at the interstate system and you can easily pick out which one is blowing the doors off of everybody. And there's usually always one, because you can get up there and I can look 34 miles down the road and just look at the traffic, see which ones are moving faster. Get that one, clock it. And it's not always a home run. Sometimes you'll get on there and clock it. Well, they're only doing 75. It's just everybody else is running that slow. That's few and far between. Up there doing that, I actually got one at 118 one time that was passing everybody on the shoulders. Well, that's a go-to-jail-free card right there. I mean, we called him out, and we had him caught within, 3 miles of me seeing him, and worked great. I was always for doing the aircraft stuff just simply because easy pickings. You're not going to be able to outrun the plane, and you're not going to be able to hide from it for the most part because you start taking exits and stuff. Well, guess what? I'm just going to go up there and circle and watch you take that exit. Watch you pull into that gas station. I've had them do that. Well, they pulled into a gas station and I just sat there and circled. When they came out, the trooper was waiting on them. I mean, how simple is that? And then it's always I really had to go to the bathroom excuse. Well, you're an adult. I understand the urge hits you, but there's no way it hits you hard enough that you need to be doing 95, 100 miles an hour on a loaded interstate full of people. I mean, the excuses were a dime a dozen when it came to that. And there's times that you believe them. Oh, yeah, you really do need to go. I can tell you really do need to go to the bathroom. But the number of times that I caught that excuse and they were saying they need to go to the bathroom, and when I wrote them a ticket anyway and cut them loose, well, guess what? They didn't pull off at the next exit where there were 3 gas stations. So it's just a line 98% of the time. And I got to say, one of my favorite ones was always when we get teenagers. And I live in a small town. So, I didn't live here very long before I knew everybody or a lot of people. And you'd get teenagers and they'd be flying down the road and, I've got to get home. Dad's going to kill me. I'm like, no, Dad's not going to kill you. What's the phone number? I'll give him a call and tell him I detained you and that's why you're late. But here's why I'm going to also tell him why I stopped you. And almost every time it's, no, don't do that, don't do that. The one thing of it is I usually did end up calling simply because, they're going to be in trouble. But I also look at the fact that I don't want to write this 16-year-old a 15-mile-an-hour ticket if I don't have to. And because guess who's going to be paying it more than likely? Mom and Dad. Guess whose insurance is going up? Mom and Dad's. So you got to use that compassion whenever you're looking at it. Now then, that's not to say that I haven't written them and that I didn't always give them that option, because your demeanor in that situation is going to really reflect on what we do. You're being a jerk about it and you're thinking we're a jerk. Well, no, I'm just doing a job. And that is the truth of it. It is a job. It's a job. It's not a personal thing. And I've been called every name you can think of over the years. Never got just super upset over it. It's not personal. They're upset because they're going to jail. Or they're upset because they are getting a big fat ticket. I never took it to heart. Now, did it irritate me? You bet. And if you're going to talk to me that way, yeah, I'm not cutting any brakes. But, you know, if you're just a level-headed and you're fairly calm about it and you understand why you got stopped, yeah, odds are I would cut you a break. That's the, and most of the guys that I work with, I'm going to say, are exactly like that. They're not out there after your money because guess what? We don't see your money. In fact, in Oklahoma, the way a trooper's stuff works, if we write a ticket, you're thinking, oh, well, you're just trying to get better cars or you're trying to get the state better stuff. Our stuff goes back to the county that we live in or the county that we stop you in, not necessarily the one we live in. So if I stop you out west of Davis, Oklahoma, which is just off the interstate, if I write you a ticket, that money that you have to pay for that ticket is going to the county of Murray, the county that Davis is in. And vice versa, if I'm up north by a town called Pauls Valley and it's in Garvin County, Oklahoma, the money there goes to Garvin County. It doesn't come back to the state, it goes to the county. And so, I mean, the other side of it is whenever you go into small towns a lot of times, you'll hear about speed traps. I'm here to tell you they're there. There are speed traps out there. There are places where they know they're going to nail you. And I disagree wholeheartedly with that. But because as a highway patrol, we never really set speed traps. Did I have places that I liked to set? You bet. I mean, there were places I knew I was going to catch speeders right and left. And I would set there a lot. And now, did my higher-ups get tired of that? You bet they did. I mean, they wanted me working other places, and that's, again, a whole nother podcast when I get on a rant and start griping about higher-ups. But, yeah, the whole speed trap thing, I just don't agree with it at all. I don't agree with them sitting there trying to nail you on some inconsistency that you couldn't know that you needed to be going slower. It's just not fair to me. But they're out there, and I mean, you know, some small towns do that because it is a revenue generator. And when it comes right down to the end of it, you really look at it, it's about money. A big part of it is about money. Now then, from our eyes, when we're out there doing it, it's about your safety, and it's about everybody else's safety, because I don't want to work the wreck that your speed's going to cause. But for towns, yeah, it's a money thing. A lot of times. Not all the time. A lot of times. But it's usually not for the officers. For the officers, it's about safety. It's about getting you from point A to point B without being in a collision. And everybody else that you pass not being in a collision. Now then, are there those officers out there that will just sit and watch traffic fly by? You bet. There are. I mean, just because they're not interested in working speed. Or, and I'll admit this one, I was guilty of this late in my career. Or you've been on 18, 19 years and you're tired. It's the same old every day. One of my buddies used to always say when I was working, he'd go, yeah, time to make the donuts. You know, those old Dunkin' Donuts commercials. That's what he said it felt like to him, was time to make the donuts. Time to go out and get my widgets. And for a big part, he was right. I mean, that's what it does get to feeling like every day. And have you ever heard somebody say the line, you know, he's driving like a off-duty trooper or a retired trooper? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm retired. I'm never in a hurry to get anywhere anymore. And it's great. We seldom ever have anything that we've got a certain time we got to be there, other than like a doctor's appointment. Well, guess what? We leave an hour earlier than we probably need to, and if we get there too early, we go get something to eat, or we go do a little shopping, or whatever my wife wants to do. So, I mean, the excuses are dime a dozen when it comes to that, and rarely do they ever work. I mean, the easiest excuse is, yeah, you got me, I was doing it. I messed up. I was always more likely in a situation like that, as long as it wasn't flagrant. If you weren't doing 110 miles an hour, you know, if you was doing 10, 12 over, and you just said, nah, you know, foot got heavy, I wasn't paying a bit of attention, and it just got away from me. I was more likely to write you a warning on that than your big line of, oh, I have to get here, this has happened, da-da-da-da. And, you know, another one that people always think works, oh, so I'm trying to get to the hospital, you know, my mom's in the hospital. What's your mom's name? We are familiar with most hospitals. So I would get the information. I would call the hospital they said they were going to. Well, lo and behold, there's nobody there but that name. Shocking. And I would tell them I would tell the hospital what I was calling for. All I am checking to see if that person is here because I got somebody out here saying that's where they're trying to get. I just want to know if they're lying. And the hospital would tell you every time, yes or no. So that's just it. I mean, you can think of the excuse that you want to use, but we've probably already been there and figured out a way around that and figured out how to explore what your excuse is. And from that, I'll go to this because I can already tell that I'll probably get some comments on my YouTube channel that, so what are excuses that do work? I can think of very few that I've ever really just bought into it and said, yeah, go on. But the ones that work is whenever you've got somebody in the passenger seat and, yeah, they look deathly ill. Or, yeah, they look like they really need to be at a hospital. So, did it work? Well, here's how it worked. Yeah, I agree, you need to get them to a hospital quickly. But guess what? I've got the ambulance on speed dial, and I'll get them here shortly. You just sit tight. I wouldn't let you go on. And the number of times that I've done that, they got out there and got checked out. EMS couldn't find anything wrong with them, and they said, yeah, no, I don't want to go with you. Well, either you went with them, that person went with them when you were in that big a hurry, or you got the ticket. And one time I had one do it, and I was iffy, and I said, well, I'll call you an ambulance. Oh, they go, oh, would you call me an ambulance? Well, yeah, called them an ambulance. The guy was actually having a cardiac event. Well, do I blame them for driving fast? No, I'd be scared to death too if it was a loved one. But do they need to be driving that fast out there? No, they're not trained to drive that fast in traffic. So I called them an ambulance. They got out there. They were thankful. Well, guess what? They didn't get a thing from me. I understood. But all in all, there is just no end-all, be-all excuse that's going to get you out of a speeding ticket. Most of us look at it the same way. There's no real reason to be driving that fast. Yeah, you're running late. Leave the house earlier. I mean, we always give you the same reasons or the same logic. Just leave the house earlier. You should have left 15 minutes earlier, or you should have left an hour earlier, whatever it may be. Yeah, I understand you had car trouble down the road. We'll call the place that you're going and tell them you had car trouble and you're trying to get there best you can. Speeding up's not it. That's not the best answer. So in the end, I mean, whenever you see these people blowing your doors off, just know that there is law enforcement out there that is working that stuff. They're just not always where they need to be every time because they're doing something else. And I didn't even bring this up. If you really got somebody driving that bad, there's usually always a number you can call and advise them of it and it's not always a bad thing. In Oklahoma, it's star 55, and that gets you to the nearest highway patrol dispatcher. And, if you get 4 or 5 calls on the same thing, or even not even that many, if you get 2 or 3 calls on the same vehicle driving really poorly, we make a point to go out and set up and catch them. And when somebody gets complained on that much, clearly, and it's from different vehicles, clearly there's something going on. Something's wrong. And I don't remember ever catching one of those off of several complaints that I wrote a warning. Because if just you going down the road, just a citizen going down the road can see that, oh my, this one is really wrong. Well, I'm going to agree with you. If I caught them doing 95 miles an hour and you said they sucked your doors off, I believe you. I'm just going to write them a ticket and let them explain that to the judge. Why on the bottom of my ticket I wrote was called in on 3 times. I mean, that's some hard evidence. And a judge, most judges I've been around, whenever you bring that kind of hard information to them, they're not real forgiving. I mean, if everybody else said you were driving bad and the officer caught you driving bad, odds are you were driving bad. So basically, guys, I'm just saying, whenever you're out there, I know it's hard to be compassionate for the officers, but you just got to know they are trying to do what they can. It's just they're not always able. I mean, simply, there's just too much going on in the world these days, and to be honest, I haven't missed it a bit. I'm not sorry that I'm not doing it anymore, that I've got my time in, and that I'm getting to do my thing now. And it's just, feel like I need to talk about some of this stuff simply because people really get a bad perception for law enforcement, and often they're doing what they can, they just can't do it all. And so there it is. We're not able to do it all. So guys, I'm going to wrap it up right there. This is Smokey Uncuffed. I'm glad y'all joined me. Be looking out next week, same time, at least same day. It may not be the exact same time, but I'll get it out the same day, and I'm looking at probably on Wednesdays. That's probably when I'm going to be able to get a new podcast out each week. And for those on YouTube, it will be the same thing. I may not get the video out the same day, but it'll probably be Thursday if I don't get it out the same day I get the podcast out. So guys, thanks for joining, and I hope you all listen next time.